Oh, and he made those strings sing. I haven't heard anyone play like that before or since, and I thank God every day for that. It made the air around us crackle and spark. It loosened the joints and jolted the mind. You felt the urge to move deep in the bone, buried in the marrow. I grabbed Sarah's hands, and we began to move across the floor, and everyone followed suit, some with partners and some without. Some were doing the foxtrot, some were doing the waltz, and some of us were doing the twist. We danced, moved, shucked, jived, rocked, and rolled. I passed Reverend Harper moving his feet in a clunky box step with a Lois Grendel, an old battle-axe of a Catholic. I saw the mayor's wife waltzing with Dan Adams, one of our firemen. I swirled with Sarah, moving across the floor, bumping and jostling with the people around us. I felt dizzy, but we kept dancing together, kept dancing and not stopping. It was a while before I realized that the song and dance man was singing too, but in a language that I didn't understand. He lorded over us, standing on that platform, making his fiddle sing and sing. His bow rose and fell, slid back and forth, side to side. He played like he talked. There were no breaks or pauses, just a manic deluge of tunes while his tongue curled around words that had no business being said in this world. I gave my head a shake as I spun with Sarah, and I realized my legs were tired. My feet ached, and my lower back was beginning to throb. I checked my watch and realized we had been dancing for a solid hour. I shook my head again, trying to shake off the dozy feeling that was clouding my thinking. "Sarah!" I cleared my throat. I had only spoken in a whisper. My tongue felt thick and funny. I tried again. "Sarah!" Louder this time, but she still didn't respond, and we kept dancing. I shook her, but she didn't respond. I kept shaking her until I realized I was doing it in time with the music. So I just tried to stop. And I couldn't. I couldn't stop. Underneath the fog, I began to feel frightened. I began to see the faces of the other people now. I saw their terror. Reverend Harper's face had grown redder than it had been before. Sweat poured down his face, but he still kept moving, twirling Mrs. Grendel around and around, her head lolling from side to side. She had fainted, but her feet were still moving. We moved past Bill, who danced with Susie Watkins, and I saw her frightened eyes darting around the room, but Bill bobbed his head in time with the music, and his glassy eyes looked at nothing in particular. The song and dance man laughed from his perch and kept playing, tapping his feet. His eyes were glowing in that dark, humid place. They glowed, and light glanced off the bow with each sweep. I heard a scream and swiveled my head to watch a woman drop to the floor holding her leg. She had cramped up. I was envious. She got to stop. She got to rest. My own legs felt like dead wood, and the ache in my back had deepened. Then her partner stepped on her ankle, and I heard the crunch from across the room. He was still dancing, his eyes blank and empty as he moved. She screamed again and started to crawl away, but instead stood up. She started to dance, bringing her weight down on the broken ankle again and again and again and again. I turned away, but I couldn't block the sound of her sobbing. The music ran on. I checked my watch again, and it had been 3 hours now. We didn't flag or falter. We kept up the same speed as the fiddle. The damning fiddle, rapping our feet against the floor. Never mind the blisters that burst. Never mind the broken toes or broken ankles. Never mind that deep pain buried in the spine that refused to go. Never mind the old hearts and bad knees. We kept up that frantic pace as one mass, a bobbing, thumping, jumping creature with one mind. Reverend Harper died at one point. I watched it happen. He was holding up the still fainted Mrs. Grendel, whose feet still moved with the music, when he dropped her and fell to the floor. He twitched once, his feet beating a quick staccato rhythm, and then was still. Mrs. Grendel got back up and kept on moving. I watched Harper as I danced, trying to see if he was still breathing. He wasn't, I swear to you. He wasn't, but he still got back up. He was dead, but he still got back up and began to dance again. He turned to look at me and grinned the song and dance man's grin. His eyes were red, filled with blood from whatever had broken in his brain. I watched as a single red tear rolled down his cheek. I shut my eyes and kept moving. Harper wasn't the last. He probably wasn't even the first. The old and the sick were the first to drop. No matter what it was, exhaustion, heart attacks, hemorrhages somewhere deep inside, they died. And then they got back up and kept dancing, grinning their grins. I passed Lizzie and Sam. He had lost his glasses at some point. His eyes darted around, terribly aware. I looked at his leg, and I saw a jet of some bone tearing through his denim jeans. There was a trail of blood behind him, and as he swirled, the spray landed on the legs of the people around him. He stepped on that broken leg, twirled on it, and jumped on it, all in time with the fiddle. The night passed. I remember stepping on something at one point, and I realized I had just crushed Mrs. Dempsey's right hand. She was lying on her back on the dance floor. She had been stepped on time and time again. I could even see a man's shoe print on her stomach. Her head had been caved in, and her chest beneath her dress had a sunken look, and still she was trying to get up and keep moving. The smell of blood mixed with the sweat, and I couldn't breathe anymore. The air was thick, and from all around I could hear cries and screams, but nothing that drowned out the fiddle or the song and dance man singing. And then it just stopped. I danced one more step and then stopped myself. I looked up at the platform. We all did, craning our necks upward. He was checking his pocket watch. "All right, folks, that's all for tonight. The dancing is done and the morning has come. You may leave if you can walk, and you should walk quick, 'cause this song and dance man is gonna be gone." We all stood there like stunned cattle, then marched to the tent flaps. No one ran because they couldn't. It was a miracle we could walk. Sarah stepped ahead of left, but I stayed behind. I turned and looked, and saw at least 20 people still standing there. Harper was among them. They were all grinning, their eyes empty. They stood and made no sign of wanting to leave. "Go on now, friend. The song and dance man has what he wants, but he'd be glad to add you too if you tarry and dally too long." I looked up at him and saw him smile, and then I turned my back to him and left the tent. When I turned back again, it was gone, along with the people inside. That's the story of what happened. The others won't tell or pretend it never happened. Never mind the 20 people that vanished that night, the mayor's wife included. They'd rather not think about it. Sarah and I took Sam to the hospital over in the next county, far from folks that knew what had happened. They had to remove his leg. Sam was quiet before and was quieter still after, pulling odd jobs that a one-legged man could do. He doesn't move around much nowadays, just sits on his porch, a cane across his lap, and massages the stump with his hand. Says it bothers him on cold nights, and warm nights, and wet nights, and dry nights. Bill left and joined the army, and stayed in long enough to fight in Vietnam and won a bunch of medals. He came back and settled down to drink, and drink hard, and if you want to find him, you can find him in Eddie Dixon's bar. No matter how drunk he gets, though, he doesn't talk about that night. None of us saw much of Sarah after. She came through the best, but that's how she always was. She left and went to college, but, like Bill, got pulled back to Belle Carne. She teaches over at the high school now, teaching English to the juniors. I stayed here, plugging away at the hardware store. I ran it for a while, but now I don't do much of anything. I just sit around with Sam, talking about things sometimes, though not often. If I stay too late, if I stay too long, I'll see his eyes go glassy behind those Coke bottle lenses, and he'll disappear into himself. and I'll catch him humming a faint trace of a song, and the hair on my neck will stand on end, and goosebumps will rise on my arms in great knots. My foot will start to tap out a small beat on the hardwood porch. A big, wide grin will spread across Sam's face. The grin of the song and dance man.